Hey everyone, Elon here with the Magical team. We're super excited to sit down today with our head of engineering, Greg, and our head of product, Raf. We're going to share with you their thoughts, ideas, and predictions about the future of AI, ChatGPT, GPTs, and also share with you a little bit what Magical's doing to transform the world of AI and automation. So we're going to kick this off with a softball kind of question just to get everybody warm. I just want to know today, based on what exists already, what is your favorite application of AI? Maybe we'll start with Greg and then go to Raph.
Well, I think, as a software engineer and as someone who leads a team of software engineers, I feel like the most powerful use of AI that I've seen so far is to assist in coding. It really has changed the game. It's made us more productive. It's made people who don't know a certain coding language be able to jump right in. It's allowed us to, get everyone in the company using SQL when not everyone was even, coding at all. So I think that's the most powerful and my favorite use of AI overall.
That's awesome. Raph?
Yeah, I think similar two-parted answer. First is for my job, which is in products. I would piggyback off of what Greg said around just the SQL side. It helps me get to answers a lot faster, which I love because it saves me a bunch of time. But I would actually say more generally I just think the mode of consumption of information is just so much better than say like traditional search. Think about like a recipe. Like if you want to get a recipe back in the day, as in like 6 months ago, you would go through a very long page, SEO optimized page of really unuser friendly content and information to get to the ultimate answer that you're looking for. Versus now, it's a really clear answer. It's often quite tuned and personalized to what I'm looking for based on what I've given it, and so I just think it's a much better user experience. That's my favorite application today.
Well, yeah, I hope you do a lot of cooking with the recipes that you get on ChatGPT or other tools.
I do cooking. I don't do good cooking, but
Sound good. Speaking of, let's go about like a year in the past. I want to level set and ask maybe Greg, maybe you'll answer this one. What is ChatGPT and what in general are GPTs?
Yeah, sure. Let me take a stab at it. So, if you go back more than, about a year ago, we didn't really have large language models out in the world. And AI was already a pretty big thing. Before Magical, I was at LinkedIn for a long time, and we used AI all the time at LinkedIn to kind of process through large amounts of data and train on that to build a custom AI models to solve certain problems, like ranking of the LinkedIn feed, for example. But basically what large language models did is they made it possible to use something out of the box that had already been pre-trained. And typically previously that wasn't possible because you had to really train it on your data. But what LLMs did is they just said, well, what if we train on all the data that everyone has in the whole world, pretty much, right? And then that's a crazy concept, but they made it work at OpenAI and other places. And we basically got this general purpose AI that was ready to go out of the box. And then on top of that, you could further fine tune it and kind of bring it into the context of different business problems that you wanted to solve. But you could do that much more easily. You didn't have to start from scratch with a large amount of data and train a custom classifier from scratch. You could just kind of fine tune on top, which was more accessible and allowed a lot of individuals and a lot of companies to start seeing the benefit. And then GPTs is sort of the latest product that OpenAI has put out to basically make it just that much easier for everybody, for more people to build AI agents on top of this power of the LLM. And you can think of it kind of like the App Store for mobile, where it was maybe difficult to build mobile apps before the app stores were there, but it just made it that much easier for small indie developers to come in and build useful tools to solve business problems and get them out to a large audience very, very quickly. So that's what I think they're trying to accomplish with GPT.
And a follow-up there, we've heard about plugins in the past from OpenAI. What's the difference here between a GPT and a plugin?
I mean, I could try to take a stab at that. I mean, from what I can tell, they're in the same vein, right? The idea of plugins was to make AI, make ChatGPT more extensible for consumers, such that it couldn't just answer questions from its existing knowledge base, what it had been trained on, but it could actually make calls out to other services. Well, GPTs do that as well, but instead they've layered in more capabilities, like the ability to have an additional knowledge repository that's immediately available, and to have pre-existing prompts and prompt suggestions available. And so it's really an iteration on top of plugins, in my opinion, making it even easier and even more user-friendly, which is why I think you're going to see plugins going away and GPTs replacing them.
Interesting. Sounds like the evolution of what this plugin vision was. Yeah, and maybe also just for our listeners or our readers, how does Magical today integrate with OpenAI or any other LLMs? Like, what is our relationship with AI today? And maybe I'll put this one to you, Raph.
Yeah. So, we'd say what Magical is. Magical is a product that helps you automate your repetitive, mundane, soul-crushing tasks. We don't want you to do any of that. We want you to focus on the things that matter to you. And so one of the big areas where we do that is within the world of messaging. We have a lot of people who send the same types of messages over and over and over and over again. And so we help them basically, save templates, use those templates in the right moments, and just help them save a bunch of time doing that. When you think about messaging, though, it's pretty common when, say, you're emailing someone for there to be a message that you have to reply to that maybe you've never had to reply to this type of message before. You kind of need something from scratch, and so that's where we leverage OpenAI today. Basically think of it as maybe you've already used a template with Magical that you have saved in some instances. Great, use that. Otherwise, maybe you need some help in crafting a new message or a new template that you've never had written out before. We'll leverage OpenAI to do that. So that's like one of our clear use cases today. There are a whole bunch of use cases that we think about in the future when we think about our understanding of the type of information that people have and are using between pages. As an example, we really see big opportunities for leveraging models to internalize that and say, hey, we think this is like think about categories of things, like we think this is related to people, this could be a first name, this could be a last name, really helping us standardize information across the web. So yeah, that's how we're currently using it today.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's been super powerful seeing how users in the real world use AI through Magical and that partnership. So that gave us a sense of today. Raph, maybe you'll connect us to what is next. So we hear about GPTs that are being launched by OpenAI and going to be made available to ChatGPT Plus users and enterprise users. What is Magical building for that audience and integrating with OpenAI?
Yeah, so obviously, they're about to launch, OpenAI is about to launch a GPT store. And part of that GPT store is basically going to be what they're doing is giving access to their millions and millions and millions of users, basically like a head start. Think of a GPT as, a more well-rounded version of ChatGPT with more context, and I can do more things because the developers can give it more actions to do than what ChatGPT does today. And so the way that we think that is really relevant for us is, as I was saying, we really focus on helping users, get rid of their soul-crushing repetitive tasks. And a big task there is data entry and, we're moving information from one place to the next or formatting information on pages. And so one really big kind of area where we saw a big opportunity for leveraging the GPT store is saying, hey, Magical has a really good understanding of different types of information on pages, say the first name on LinkedIn and things like that. And we often see that people want to extract that information into, say, a spreadsheet, a table, or another format. ChatGPT, gives you access to crawling websites, things like that. And so really what we're doing is putting those things together and building a way to extract information from any page on the web to ultimately format it in the way that you want. So it brings together the special sauce that ChatGPT has of being able to go to different sites and internalize those sites while also leveraging Magical's knowledge of what information is on those sites to match the information on the site to what the user is actually looking for and outputting it in a format that the user is looking for. But we're super, super excited to launch on the GPT store very, very soon.
Awesome. And
maybe I can add something if you don't mind. Yeah, I think when we were playing with ChatGPT and also ChatGPT plugins, of which one of the built-in plugins that OpenAI provides, scraping web pages for more information is one of the key things that people want to do with GPT, and that the new plugins and GPTs do allow folks to do. However, unfortunately, in playing with that, we ran into several problems where the scraper was not really doing a great job, and we believe that it's a decent scraper, but it's doing it sort of from a general perspective. And Magical has several years of experience in understanding web pages very deeply in order to extract the salient information from them for automating mundane, repetitive tasks. And that's really one of our secret sauces of our company. So what we wanted to do is think about how could we give that back to make that accessible to users of GPT Plus and Enterprise. And that's what we're trying to do here with this GPT that we're launching.
That's awesome. It sounds like we'll have more useful information that they might be able to get with another generic scraper based off of our experiences we've built over the past few years doing this as a browser extension. Yeah, awesome. That brings us kind of to the more recent world of news around OpenAI. Let's start with an easier one, which is, why do you, or maybe not easier, let's start with a question around why are they launching a GPT store? And again, I think you touched on this, Raf, but maybe just elaborate. Why do you think they're giving access to the broad developer community to do these types of things? Wouldn't that compete with the user base or the model building and data that they would get through the specific ChatGPT? Maybe elaborate on why they're doing this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different reasons. So one is obviously by building, OpenAI has only so many developers at OpenAI, right? There's, I don't know how many, this one, but probably a few hundred. And they can only build so many different ways of actually, building out the product. And what they're doing by enabling developers to build on top of it is they're saying, hey, we want to kind of crowdsource all the different ways that people might use this. And we want not just, we want to crowdsource not just like engineering work, but we also want to crowdsource the ideas. Because obviously OpenAI can't come up with all the different ways in which ChatGPT might be used. Instead, that's really, the world will have a lot more ingenuity than, a subset of a few hundred people in a boardroom. And so really that's ultimately what they're doing. And I think definitely it's not a competition. They're not competing with themselves. Instead, they're just extending their use cases to a much broader audience. The other thing that I definitely expect them to start doing with these GPTs is really around, the same way that Notion became Notion by being a very horizontal product, but always having templates tailored to the specific persona that was coming in. So say as a product manager, I'd come in and say I was a product manager, and there'd be a spec template ready for me to get going on. One of the things that I expect with these GPTs is that you can imagine, you're an end user of ChatGPT, and you can imagine onboarding where it's like, what are you trying to do? And they can connect you with the GPTs that will help you accomplish that, so that they can kind of solve that cold start problem a lot faster for that user. And the user isn't just left there trying to prompt their way through, to the answer that they're looking for. And so really, I just think of it as, you know, you're really extending your addressable market by allowing developers to build on top, and you're making your product a lot more easy to use and friendly to use, because you're not requiring every single end user to be a prompt engineer. Instead, you can leave that to the folks who are building the GPTs instead.
Great point.
Let me add on something, which is that I think it's important to emphasize that the way people access OpenAI's products like GPT-4, for example, or GPT 3.5, that's not changing. There's still an API access, and Magical is still going to continue to use that, and many other products in the world. So, you're still going to get an amazing experience, even probably a better experience, more extensive experience by using Magical directly as a browser extension, which is then integrated through the API into ChatGPT. However, what we're doing here and what they are doing is expanding and offering another way to use that same power, but to use it in the context of ChatGPT, the consumer product, where you could just go and talk to it. And today, if you're going there, you can't use Magical there. You need to flip over and use it as an extension. But I mean, you can use it if you have it installed and you're filling templates or something into the chat. But you can't use the full power of Magical kind of inside ChatGPT. So that's what we're fixing here. We're bringing the power of Magical into ChatGPT by extending their scraping capabilities with Magical's secret sauce. And that's an and, not an or. I just want to make sure people understand that it's an and, not an or. And it's an and, not an or, both from OpenAI's business model and their goals, but also from Magical's perspective.
I think it's growing the pie is what I'm hearing. It's really growing the pie of the amount of people who will have access, who will be able to use things like Magical and ChatGPT. Really cool. And one thing that we've seen a lot in the media recently is drama, for lack of a better word, around the CEO and the leadership and the board at OpenAI. There's definitely been questions about different points of view from the nonprofit board versus a more commercial organization. How do you think that's going to impact the future of the ecosystem? I'll put this one for you, Greg, as someone who really understands the developer mindset. How is this going to impact, the trust that developers and people building will have in the ecosystem of OpenAI?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it's I think it's a temporary drama, and things are a bit confused right now as what's going to happen exactly with OpenAI and Microsoft. But I think in the long run, it's good for the community because there's more competition, there's more people building powerful LLM products, and the capabilities of those products and the price of those products will basically respond to that competitive pressure. So this situation is not the first example of that. There was a period earlier where a bunch of people disagreed already with OpenAI's approaches and broke off and started another company called Anthropic. And of course, we have like strong AIs that are coming out from other major companies as well, like Google and Facebook. And so I think we have a pretty rich community of these, LLM developers and LLM platforms. And OpenAI has absolutely been leading the pack there and continues to lead the pack. And that's one of the reasons that we use them at Magical. But, we could very easily switch over and use another LLM provider or use multiple LLM providers. And I think that's what a lot of the developers in the community are going to be exploring and continuing to see like what is the best option for them and their users. Today, we still believe that is OpenAI. OpenAI has an amazing product, but I think I think we'll just kind of wait and see. I think we're still at the beginning of a very long journey, and we're like 1 year into the public unveiling of LLMs, and I think it's going to continue to evolve. And I think this is really going to transform everything. In the same way that when mobile came 10, 15 years ago, nobody was using apps on mobile. But now no one can imagine doing their work or even their personal life without a mobile app. I think it's going to be the same thing for AI. And I think we're going to have AI not replacing everything, but augmenting every action that we do, every type of business function over time. And I think this drama that we're seeing with OpenAI it's gonna be an exciting moment in history where there's probably gonna be a movie made about it. But I don't think it's gonna derail the general progress that we're seeing in the industry.
For sure. I think it's almost a competitive advantage for whatever company is leading the pack to continue to build a great ecosystem. So we know that OpenAI will continue to invest there, and Google and all the other kind of big LLM leaders. Awesome. On that note, let's talk about safety and ethics around AI for a second. We know that's one of the things that is driving a little bit of attention in the board, because there's this nonprofit org that's really trying to focus on safe and ethical AGI, artificial generalized intelligence. So how do you think that plays into the way that companies like Magical, who work with OpenAI, protect their users and protect the security of the companies that choose to work with us? How do we make sure that we're both monitoring how OpenAI is thinking about safety and ethics, but also taking care ourselves? Maybe we'll go to Raf first for any thoughts, and then Greg as well.
Yeah. One is I definitely think Greg will have a lot of thoughts. I know he does. I've heard some of his thoughts on this. But two is I'd say I think there's a few interesting bits that Greg just touched on that also touch on this, which is first is at the end of the day we really don't know where this is all going. I think like we can't really, being from the outside, we can't really predict what any one company is going to do. If anyone tried to predict what happened last week, we would have never thought that. I think one of the, when we think about Magical and one of the ways in which we decide who to work with, I think one of the really powerful functions is that there are a lot of different companies starting to pop up that are in this space, right? And so I think there will be some, like market equilibrium here where people are having to follow an ethical path to be able to work with different companies, because companies will go buy the models from the companies that are at the forefront of privacy and security and just data governance. And so I think there is like a bit of like a balancing act that happens as a result of that, where companies are having to compete against each other. And so they're having to be at the forefront of that. That's fundamentally, I think, like how we'll balance things out. But I do think we should entirely expect that certain companies will make the wrong decisions in certain ways. And I think we'll have to learn from that. And I definitely expect that it'll be a bumpy ride as we go, because I think a lot of this is, a blank canvas. And I think we, as with any technological innovation, there's always the good and the bad, and I think we just have to figure out what that bad is so we can try to contain it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, thanks. Greg?
Yeah, so I think there's two parts of this discussion. One is, there's sort of like the bigger discussion about AGI and like whether you're an optimist for that working out well for the human race, or a pessimist of that being dangerous for the human race. And I think that's a very important debate that's, has very strong opinions on both sides. But I think that's a little bit removed from Magical, because Magical is just using what is available, and we're not developing our own, we're not pushing the boundary of LLMs towards AGI. Personally, I think we as an industry and as a species are very far away from real AGI. I think that it's not going to be like next year or the year after. There are some people that think that we are that close, but I personally think it's much further away. And so the danger of those things, we have some time to to think about how to deal with them. But I really do think it's important to be thinking about that, and there are a lot of people doing good work on that. But I think bringing it back to Magical and companies like Magical, there's absolutely an important privacy and ethical aspect to how to use AI in general, and how to use it in an applied sense to business problems, which is really what Magical does. And I think that starts with really thinking about data privacy and data security the way we do in all applications when we're doing right by our users. And so for us, that means basically we're not transmitting any data in the clear. We're always encrypting data when it's transmitting. We're not storing the data that we might be sending something to OpenAI to process. We're not storing that. We're trying to protect everyone's data as carefully as possible. We have, OpenAI, I think, is a great company in the sense that they have made their blanket policy for quite a while now not to train their model on anybody's data without them explicitly opting into it. And so if you use Magical for AI, OpenAI will not be training its models on those prompts, those queries that you make. And so that does give them another measure of trust and ethical boundary there. Yeah, I mean, I think Magical is very committed to making sure that what we do with your data is safe and secure, especially because we do have access to, people trust us with their business data in order to automate their business tasks that are taking a lot of their time, and we want them to not have to waste all that time on copy pasting and rather spend it on more meaningful value that they can add to their organization. But we want to make sure that's done in a way that is safe and secure. And we recently received SOC 2 certification, so we are very much thinking about these things. And we are always in discussion with customers about exact details of how do we handle these things. But we definitely make sure that all data is transmitted and stored securely, encrypted. And then we also make sure that we are not having OpenAI or any other provider train on the queries that you might make through Magical.
That's a great point. If you didn't mention our SOC 2 Type 2 compliance, I definitely was going to also. It's something we're really committed to. I also think there's this onus on the user, like we see with phishing as like an end user, facing security risk. I think people need to be smart with what they're putting into AI and need to learn and train themselves as they use it. So there's definitely more onus on the businesses that are being paid and being used. But I think everyone as an end user, it should continue to educate themselves. So we talked a lot about kind of this intersection of AI and automation, kind of like where Magical plays. How do we think AI is going to help fast track this future that Magical is envisioning of automating soul-crushing, repetitive, mundane tasks? Ralph, I'll put this one to you first.
Yeah. So first things first is AI isn't a feature. It's a lever that we use to solve easy problems or hard problems. And so as with anything, we're an AI company because we have a lot of AI kind of transcending what we do. But we really think of AI as a tool in our toolkit to solve the problems that we do. When we think about what we do, really we are an automation tool, again, that helps you automate your soul-crushing tasks. And that comes up in a few different ways. So one is, one of the big things that we do is that we see how users work. And then often users, come in, they have a specific way in which they know they're not being super efficient, and they want help with that. But then Magical is actually finding other ways in which they're being inefficient. There's kind of like an unknown unknowns aspect here where people are spending a lot of time on things that they don't even realize they're spending a lot of time on that could be automated. And so when we think about where Magical is and where it goes, we're really in the space of helping you just automate those tasks and helping you discover that you can automate those tasks. And so we definitely see opportunity to leverage AI in terms of classifying, categorizing the type of tasks that are relevant to you, that we think you should be automating based on how you work, based on how your teammates work, based on how similar people like you work. And then the next bit is also like leveraging AI to connect you to the value faster. So, one of the big things that we've seen, think of ChatGPT, is that people have really started to write out the things that they're trying to accomplish as a method of actually reaching the end value that they want to get to. And so we really see an opportunity for, Magical is a really horizontal product that you can do a ton of things with. That's obviously a blessing because you can do a lot of things with us. There's a lot of people who could find value from us. But that can also be a curse because there's just almost too many things that you could do. And so we really see an opportunity for leveraging AI to help users like connect to that value that they're trying to accomplish today a lot faster. So you can imagine them, us asking you on day one, like, what are you trying to do? And you type it out and we actually like get you automatically to that value. And so yeah, I think it's really about one is helping you discover the things that you may not have you're even known or repetitive in your day to day, and helping you automate those. And then two is helping you really ultimately get to that thing a lot faster. So that can be in the way that you write it out or things like that.
Awesome. Yeah, Greg, any additional thoughts there in terms of Magical's future and vision of how we use AI?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's so many potentials, and I feel like sometimes it can get lost in all the potential of what a productivity app can do for you. I really kind of focus it back on what we are really amazing at doing for you today, which is, if you are repetitively messaging, Magical is amazing at doing that. And we've really folded in AI very seamlessly there. And then also, if you are constantly having to copy paste data for data entry reasons or filling forms, even you may not think of it as data entry, that is something that Magical can make super automatic for you. And increasingly, there will be AI in that process as well. And Magical has built all this on the basis of really understanding the data, the information on any page that you have open. And so you could think of Magical as, first and foremost, making all the information on any of your open tabs available to you, both through AI and non-AI means. And then being able to automate to solve repetitive tasks by using that information. And today that's really centered around messaging and data entry. But there's going to be a lot more to come as we build out more capabilities for you. And as Raf mentioned, making it even more automatic such that we can recommend to you places you may not have even thought about automating. So that's pretty exciting. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think you called it unknown unknowns, Raf. Like, I think that's such a big piece for people. They don't even know where we're spending our time and wasting our time. So thank you, Greg. Thank you, Raf, for those points. You both, in different points of the conversation, made a comment like, it's really hard to predict what will be available, or, it's hard to envision all of the things. I want to take a minute to just think outside of work, or including, work and work things. What do you think in the GPT store that's going to get launched in the next few weeks? What are going to be the most popular GPTs? What's your prediction there? Maybe that's a bit more focused to help us get to a place. And it can be work related, it can be home related, it can be fun related. What are maybe one or two thoughts of what's going to be built in the GPT store? What is going to be popularly used by OpenAI's users besides Magical?
I can take a quick stab, and maybe Raf, you can add on. I think it's, again, I'm going to make the analogy to mobile where, if you think about what apps came out at the beginning of mobile, they were really very, very simple wrappers on top of the new capabilities that were suddenly available, like the camera or the accelerometer or the flashlight, or now that you had a touchscreen interface to display something. So I think, the first wave of apps you're going to see are going to be pretty light wrappers on top of GPT's native capabilities of which are already substantial, right? So because the existing capabilities are so substantial, just putting a small additional tweak on top of that could actually be pretty interesting. But then I think that is going to run its course. And then all of those lightweight wrapper ideas will have been used up and tried and be out there. And the ones that work well will be working well. And the ones that don't will sort of fall away as a fun experiment. But then what's going to be left is deeper products that actually zero in on a particular business vertical and really understand it deeply, maybe bring their own data to bear on it. Like Magical has a lot of data about tons of different websites and how data is structured and how to really make sense of complex data structures on web pages that are designed for humans to read. And I think that you'll get more powerful, deeper use cases that are more niche to different verticals. And so I think Magical's scraper GPT will be in that category, but there'll be many other functions. I think you'll see things like, do your taxes with GPT, or, assist you with, you can almost pick any business vertical, a doctor who wants to have a second opinion. I don't think, GPTs are going to be making the medical diagnoses, but if the doctor wants to make sure they haven't forgotten something from all the medical textbooks that have ever existed, they could quickly, ask and just, double check their own intuition. And I think you're going to see that. And then obviously we already have GPTs used a lot in creative work, generating copy and generating images. Again, I think that's going to be surface level, and then you're going to get more depth. You're going to get more specialization into verticals. But I'll let Raph add on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have had a pretty similar answer. I think the piece that really the way I think about it is like, what are the things that people search for today and like need for help today the most? And then the way I think about it is like ChatGPT and via the GPT store will bring more value to the user at a faster cadence. So if you think about the recipe example I gave earlier, where it's like the way you search for a recipe today is by searching it on Google. It takes you however many minutes to get to the actual recipe at the very end. Like, GPT store, I assume that, maybe there's a chef out there who has a brand who wants to build his or her brand and leverages some special fine tuning that is specific to them. That is kind of the recipe or store. Similarly in healthcare, I think there's a really clear example here where doctors only usually have 5 to 10 minutes with each patient. And so people often spend their time looking up their symptoms, trying to get as much information about their conditions as possible on Google. But it's really a chat-like system that has an understanding of billions of records across the internet. Likely can be a much better experience there. And so I assume there will be another big area there as well. And I really just think of it as like the initial version is going to be all around assistance, and then it'll be assistance for the specific needs that users have today. And the assistance will just go deeper into each of those verticals.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for both of your thoughts. I think it's been super interesting to see as two people building a GPT what you think the future is. Let's close off this conversation with one last thought. What do you think is one thing, one task, or one activity maybe that AI won't automate, that is just so human that we can't lean on robots for? You can give reasoning or not. You can just like say your answer and that's it. or you can give your rationale too. Maybe Ralph, will start with you.
Yeah, so I'm keeping my mind open on this, in that who knows what's possible, and so I'll tell you what I hope, and then who knows if that ends up happening. But um, at the end of the day, and I think this gets into the identity conversation, but at the end of the day, I really think that humans, we are like physical and emotional people. Like that is ultimately the bit that I think makes us fundamentally human. It's really around connection, and my hope is that and my expectation is that, first of all, it's going to take a very, 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 very long time to try to replace that and replicate that. But I also think it's a scary world if all of a sudden, we lose the thing that makes us fundamentally human, and we lose the thing that's made us fundamentally unique in the way that we are. Some of the sci-fi movies where a human falls in love with a robot, like those are worlds that just like do not necessarily excite me. I think it'd be a bit of a shame for humans to kind of lose that thing that makes us humans, and lose the thing that is ultimately, when we're on our deathbeds, we look back and we think about the connections we've made with people. And I think that's the piece that I think, at least for the very, very, very long foreseeable future, I don't expect AI to be able to make a dent in. Who knows, though? Long term, anything's possible.
Let's hope. Greg?
Well, I like what you said, Raph, about us having, as humans, we have a physical body and we have physical, senses and our brains are in a certain way. So I feel like that inevitably brings a uniqueness. And I think, the easy answer is, oh, well, yeah, creativity and emotion. And I think that is true for the foreseeable future. But I think even in the very long term, even if, AI is able to simulate some amount of emotion or creativity, which I think we have seen what looks like creativity to some extent in the writing that LMs are able to produce through just the random factors of so many millions of permutations. But also actually, I guess, borrowing the creativity of humans by training on human works, right? Human writing. I think even if that's simulated, fundamentally, AI is not living the experience of being a human. AI doesn't have a physical body. AI doesn't have physical senses. And just fundamentally, even if AI thinks, it doesn't think the way we think. And so I think that will continue to be a unique, humans will always have a unique perspective on the world. But like you, Raph, I think we're very far away from the world where we're like, sort of peers in that, and we're equal, but we're different, which I think could come to be in some far future. But in the nearer future, what we're really dealing with LLMs is an incredibly powerful machine that is able to basically compress all of the data that is available on the internet and the data that you train it with, and predict what you might like to know from that data set, which is incredibly powerful. If you had said to somebody, a few years ago, is this going to be possible? People would probably say no, very emphatically no. And here it is. So it's a major breakthrough, a major new capability. And that's why Magical is so invested in bringing that power to you as a user to solve your business problems. But fundamentally, we're still not anywhere close to something that is a real, that's what we say when we're talking about artificial general intelligence, and intelligence that is self-aware and able to operate independently the way that a human is able to operate. And I don't think we're very close to that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Thank you for both of your super interesting insights and expertise. Speaking of intelligence, you two are super intelligent, and I just appreciate your time. I know that everyone listening learned a ton from this conversation. And for those listening, if you'd like to keep learning about AI and automation, please follow along with Magical. We'll continue to post content like this to help you learn. That's all for today. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Thanks, Elon.
Thank you.
Bye.